Hello, my name's Melissa Ledger. I'm the Director of Cancer Prevention and Research at Cancer Council Western Australia, and it's a pleasure to be part of this online video education session for our research program. Today we're going to be talking about the Project Grants Workshop, and I just get to do some introductions and tell you some of the amazing things that we get to do through our research funding program. So I've already done the introduction of me. I have been working in this role for about 4 years now at Cancer Council. I'm responsible and have oversight for our research funding program and consult really closely with the chair of our Research Grants Advisory Committee, Professor David Preen. We're very fortunate to have an enormous group of volunteers who help us with our research through our committee structure and help us make those really important decisions and assessments around our research funding. So I'm enjoying the role, and I look forward to seeing some of the applications that come through and getting to know more of the cancer research community in Western Australia. Before we get started with the rest of this workshop, I would like to make an acknowledgement of country. And so in the spirit of deepening relationships, Cancer Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land where we're meeting today, where I'm sitting today, and that's the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And I'd like to recognise their continuing connection to land, water and community. I'd also like to acknowledge the country that you might be joining us today on this online workshop and acknowledge the traditional custodians of that country. I'd also like to pay respects to Elders past and present and extend my acknowledgement and respect to Aboriginal people who are joining us on this online workshop. So welcome to our research grant workshop. There's a few things that I'd like to go through, and we'll talk about the importance of our research grants as we go along. These are really the flagship grants for our organisation. These have always been called our pump priming grants, that there's an opportunity here for researchers to get data to help inform perhaps the next application for more funding from an organisation that has bigger funding pools for cancer research. So we've always been really proud of the role that these research grants play in that sort of pump priming early career opportunity, or certainly early research opportunity, to get some of that data that you might not otherwise get the chance to do. That's always been really important to us at Cancer Council. We've made a significant investment over the years in cancer research, and this year's no different. And we have allocated $2.5 million to our research funding program in the 2022-23 financial year. And we have 7 research grants to award to the value of $120,000. So we talk about Cancer Council, and as I say, we're very proud of our research program. We talk about our investment being second only to the state government in Western Australia in cancer research. So we have an enormous role to play in peer-reviewed and peer-assessed research that's competitive as well. And we really do talk about that, as I say, in a very proud way. We try and support researchers across the continuum of cancer research. So we fund people and projects. When it comes to people, we invest in very early career, including scholarships for students still in their undergraduate qualification, as well as early career, postdoctoral, and then more senior fellowships as well. So we try and ensure that we can support people to remain in cancer research and in Western Australia for as much as we possibly can. And then our research funding program, as the name states, talks about research and funding specific research projects. I've already talked about the peer review process. So one of the big changes and one of the reasons why we're holding the workshop is that we are now no longer using the NHMRC process to assess our research grant applications, or your research grant applications. And so we've had to change the process quite significantly, and Anna will go through that with you in just a moment. It's become really important to do this for a few reasons. We had a review several years ago that identified the different directions that NH&MRC and Cancer Council Western Australia grants were going in. And one of them was the quantum of funds available and how difficult it is to write an application for several $1 million and then an application for $120,000. So that was one of the very big reasons that we decided to make this change. So please bear with us as we implement this new methodology for application and assessment, and we'll be learning a lot together, I'm sure, over this first round. It's still really important, though, that people understand that there's still Cancer Council funding available through the NH&MRC process, and that is through the Rally funding that Cancer Council New South Wales administer on behalf of all cancer councils across the country. So we'll move on. In fact, before I do move on, because it's going to be our next, one of the great things about our research grant program, and I'm hoping with perhaps this change in the application and assessment of our grants, is that we might start to see more applications and varying applications across the cancer continuum, and certainly looking at Cancer Council's priorities and pillars and those areas of cancer research, such as biomedical research, public health research, health services research, perhaps even some linked data research. It's really exciting to think what our new assessment process and application process could bring in the way of different applications. So we're really looking forward to that and seeing what we get. So I think that's it from me. Probably the one thing I have failed to mention, and I'll just mention it right now, is that our research funding program is also fully donor funded. And I think that's so important and something that we probably don't talk enough about at Cancer Council, but we are so delighted and privileged to be part of a state that the community gives so much and see the importance and the value of cancer research. And so we in turn invest those donor dollars into our research program. And not only is it through donations, but also the incredible generosity of people leaving gifts to us in their wills, so a bequest to research. And often they are for specific types of research, and you may have seen over the years that we develop particular streams to allocate out that kind of bequest specific funding. But often it's just generally for cancer research, and that's such a wonderful thing for us because it helps us to maintain our research funding program, and even in difficult times with COVID, we were able to maintain our investment in research, which is something that we have been really, really thrilled to be able to do. So, as I said, I look forward to getting some applications, to continuing to support the cancer research in Western Australia and to continue to grow the best and brightest cancer researchers. I hope you enjoy the rest of the workshop, and I look forward to hearing how the new application process goes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anna Nagel. I'm the Research Development Senior Coordinator at Cancer Council WA. The purpose of the project grants is to provide preliminary funding for the development of early stage research projects, which may then become more competitive for larger national funding pools. We're committed to supporting the career development and progression of early career researchers. So an early career investigator must be named as a chief investigator. Their role on the team will be assessed, so there's a need to ensure they're integrated fully into the research project. These are one-year grants for up to $120,000. Your application will need to reflect this. There are restrictions on the number of times a chief investigator can apply for these grants. The chief investigator A may only submit one application to the current round and may appear on up to 2 other applications as chief investigator. Any chief investigator who is not a chief investigator A may appear on up to 4 applications in the current round. The following criteria are standard criteria and ones which you will likely recognise. Where the CIA holds their primary appointment is important. As always, research can be from any legitimate area of cancer research. A leading or administering institution will need to be identified although it is understood that may involve 2 or more institutions acting in collaboration. Most of the research work should be conducted in Western Australia. Your expression of intent must cover the following: administration criteria, which is essentially details on the Chief Investigator A, the Administration Officer, and the research institution. Application data is data we capture to report on and includes things like tumour types and research area. The research proposal, so there is project description, which is justification, objectives, and research methods, and it's about 700 words. This will be expanded for the full application, where you'll be required to upload a 4-page document, and in which can be included diagrams and graphs, etc. Chief investigators on the research team. This is a brief section which will be expanded on in the full application to include a 1-page CV for each member to provide details relevant to their involvement in the research. Impact and outcome includes knowledge production and capacity building. These will be expanded on in the full application. Also added to the full application will be the indicative budget and a timeline. This information will enable the panel to assess your application against scientific quality, which includes innovation, research design, feasibility, and against outcomes and impact, which will include knowledge production and capacity building. The community criteria has been abbreviated for the expression of intent and includes a section on the plain language title and summary, as well as a brief description of the pathway to translation and community involvement in research. You can find out more about the community criteria by visiting our YouTube channel to access the Cancer Council WA Community Criteria Workshop. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Naomi Opler, and I'm the Research Development Officer for Cancer Council WA. The purpose of this part of the workshop is for me to show you how to submit your expression of intent and/or your application online. So first of all, Cancer Council WA launched its new grant management system in April 2022. And this really did usher in a new era for us in terms of our grant management systems. So actually using the online grant application portal makes applying for research funding from Cancer Council WA easy and accessible. And we trust this really does make a difference to cancer researchers across Western Australia. Okay, so then how to submit your expression of intent and/or your application online. Well, firstly, there are easy to follow guidelines on the steps to take to submit your application, and they're available on our website, and that's www.cancerwa.asn.au. A couple of things to note. Submission of your application does require certification by the responsible officer from your institution. You do need authorisation in order to submit your application. And the responsible officer must be on the application as the administering institution officer. Good, so there you are, and you're about to complete your application. Well, there are 6 stages to complete your application before it can be submitted. Now, each stage does need to be completed in order for you to submit your application. However, you don't have to complete these in order. You can, for example, start with your administration criteria and then skip to your research proposal, and then go back to track record criteria and so on. Just as long as each of those 6 stages are completed, you'll be able to submit. Okay, just some examples here on what is included in the various stages, and I'll just cover a couple here. So the administration criteria requires that you complete information such as your personal details, the details of your administering institution officer, and just to note, your administering institution officer must be the same as the responsible officer. And of course, the institution from which your research is going to be conducted. The research proposal requires that you complete the important components that define your project, including your scientific title, the details of your proposal, your innovation statement, knowledge production, research translation, and of course your research supervisory team. There are easy to access guidelines available at this link. Please feel free to photograph that for later use. Finally, I want to thank you for your attention during this presentation. I hope it's been useful for you and beneficial for you. If you do need any further information or you've got further questions, please feel free to contact us, that's the research team, at Cancer Council WA on 9388 4328, as you can see below, or at our email address. Thanks again. Goodbye.